I'm going to say two words to you right now. I want you to listen to them very, very carefully. Then I want you to take them out of the office with you and incorporate them into your life. Okay, you're there.
Stop it! Stop it! Stop it! Stop making movies! Stop it! Stop it! Stop it! Stop making movies! Stop it! Stop it! Stop it! Stop making movies! Stop it! Stop it! Stop it!
Hey everybody, and welcome to this episode of Stop Making Movies. I'm your host, Joshua Bobinet, recovering filmmaker. I say that in jest. I am, in fact, a filmmaker that has been playing with the idea of doing a podcast called Stop Making Movies for quite a while. The idea is that people that truly love filmmaking and are truly devoted to it would never stop, so I could never get them to stop. But I want to say to those that are a little bit questioning the direction they're on when it comes to filming, if you are worried that you don't have what it takes, you probably should just stop it and go become the manager of Jiffy Lube or whatever your heart desires. But there are easier ways to make a buck than making movies. So my recommendation is stop making movies unless you have a voice on your shoulder that just will not let you quit. Today I have the absolute pleasure of talking to Mr. Richard Burgin, who has recently directed his first feature film. Well, I say recently, he directed it a few years back, but it finally came out. Sometimes these things take a while, especially if there's a mass pandemic, but sometimes these things take a while. He stuck with it and finished what I would call a very, very well put together, really frightening horror film called Fang. So we're going to sit down and talk to him. I'm living in the snowy tundras of the Midwest right now, and one of the things you learn while living in the Midwest is that the winter is a fine time for writing. You do not have to concern yourself with the outdoor beauty of warmer climates. You are stuck with your pen and your paper from an ancient time. You must put pen to paper or fingers to keys to write the draft for the thing you're going to do this summer. But there's no shooting in the winter sometimes out here unless you're going to try to make something about Antarctica. Maybe it's the perfect time to do a remake of like The Thing, like John Carpenter's The Thing, when you're stuck in the Midwest during winter. I don't know, were there strip malls in The Thing? I don't think there were strip malls in The Thing. Anyway, so we're dealing with that, but that gives me time to sit down with Richard Burgin, as I said, talented filmmaker, charming individual. And check out below, we've got some links to his film Fang. You can watch it for free online. And also to his Indiegogo page where he's raising money for his next feature film about clowns. Not one clown, but multiple clowns, if you're into that kind of thing. This episode is brought to you by Phantom Mentor Digital. Be visible with all things digital. You can check them out at phantommentor.com, and they have a YouTube channel called Phantom Mentor. So let's sit down with Richard Burgin and see what he has to say.
See, Dave told me a lot about you.
Yeah, Dave, my cousin. I feel sorry for Dave that he has to be my cousin. That's not an easy job for anybody, being my cousin.
I hear ya.
Yeah. So how's your day going?
Well, you seem like a pretty great guy to me.
Well, I appreciate that, Richard. Thank you.
It's been great.
Yeah, you had a good day?
Oh, thank you. Yeah, I've been getting a lot of work done on my different projects, and I got to be visiting my mom in Florida next week. So
that's crazy. I'm gonna probably be down in Florida in about a week and a half myself. So maybe we'll cross paths.
Oh, sweet.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Which part?
My dad has a condo out just south of Daytona Beach in New Smyrna Beach. And so my dad's getting a little older, so what I do is I fly usually I drive him down because he wants to have his car when he's down there. Then I enjoy the weather for a few days, and I fly back. And then I sit in the snow in the Midwest for about a month. Then I fly down and help him drive back because he's getting a little older. So I worry about him on the road. So that's kind of my method of getting vacations and helping my dad drive.
That's a good vacation method.
Yeah, it kind of works. Kind of works. And you said you were working on your projects today. The thing that's very noticeable about you, Richard, is that you are cranking out some stuff. When I look at your list of stuff you're putting out a lot of films. Are most of them the most current stuff? Most of those short films that you're doing, or
that's right. Yeah, I like to do different videos for fun. Mm-hmm. Not like a super serious thing, but I always feel good, when I create something, even when it's not like a major project. And the next feature length movie that I'm going to be directing is called The Slaughter Brothers Dime Circus. Yeah. It's based on the play by Sean Sullivan, and him and his husband, Lynn Griffin, live in Toronto. And it's basically about this circus where like some very weird stuff starts to happen to the different clowns, like they get transformed into insects.
So we're talking about a movie with multiple clowns, not just one clown. Yeah. Usually there's one scary clowns. Well, usually there's one scary clown. You're going multiple clowns.
I'm going multiple.
You're doubling down on some of the worstest fears of people in the entire world. You know what I mean? Like,
oh yeah.
A multiple clown situation. I wrote a script once that I have never made, but it's called Clown Clown Mouse Mouse Clown, and it's cool. It's about it's about a group that gets together due to their fears, like a phobia group, and each one has kind of their own phobias, and a guy up the street is so upset about their meetings. And kind of like he's such a grumpy dude that he starts to try to create their worst fears, and bring them to their meetings, Anyway, so.
Oh, man, I'd be happy to take a look at that script if somebody to read it.
Yeah.
That's a really cool idea. I haven't heard of any movie with that exact premise before. Yeah. Which I always appreciate a different kind of premise.
Yeah, I'm one of those guys that I tend to write from a character's point of view specifically. So usually my character takes me down a road. You know what I mean? So most of my stuff does turn out to be pretty authentic in the sense that I only know where the character's taking me. I don't have kind of broad plot points generally when I'm writing something. I have usually interesting visions of a scene or interesting, like maybe an ending that I see. And then everything else is just finding the trail to those things, so a little bit of a break.
Oh, definitely. No, that's I can identify a lot with that too. Usually when I'm envisioning a movie, I start with particular scene ideas and possibly character ideas that come to me first. And then gradually it all sort of gels into a cohesive whole.
Yeah. So as I look at all the things that you have been making recently, you mentioned that you have fun with it. You're always trying to keep your chops going. You're always trying you're always trying to just enjoy the process. And so that's what
absolutely. I think.
So all the things that you shoot,
go ahead.
I mean, all the things that you shoot, do you have full crews for them? Is it you with a camera? Is it one or two actors? Is it animation? Like what kind of stuff are you working on?
Oh, usually if it's like just a short video that I'm making, then it's me with a camera for the most part. But for my bigger productions, I do have full crews. And for my first feature-length movie, Fang, I think everybody in our crew did a really wonderful job. I was incredibly lucky to get to work with such talented and experienced people, given that I had never directed a feature length movie before. And so for any bigger, longer project that I do, I make sure that I have a great team of people working with me. But for anything short and simple that I'm just kind of doing in my spare time, then I'm like, yeah, I'll fire up the old iPhone, take to the streets, and see what looks interesting.
That's what makes filmmakers. I mean, from my perspective, that's what makes filmmakers. These crews with these highly experienced people, they're talented and experienced and technically savvy. They only are looking for somebody who has the vision because they want to know what to point the camera at. They want to know
Absolutely.
what sound they're trying to record. They want to know how this movie's being pictured in your head, the director, and only you have privy to that movie that's happening in your brain, right? As a director myself, I know that I have to know the entire movie. I've already watched it. It's in my head. Now what I'm going to end up with might not land exactly how I envisioned it because that's where the technical artistic craft comes in, but you have to be able to see the vision, right?
Oh yeah, no, it's all about trying to recreate the movie that was already in your head, only in real life. And that's easier said than done because your imagination can kind of produce like imagery instantly, but then you have to figure out what are the practical considerations for filming a scene like this. And that does influence the way that I write scenes sometimes if I want to make sure that it's not something that would be crazy expensive to film, or that it's not like expensive for no reason because you're going to spend the money on something, or the film investors spend the money on something, but I want to make sure that it's used very wisely and appropriately, and that every cent that gets spent on the movie shows up on screen.
Well, I think that from the movie Fang, when I watched it, the thing that dazzled me about it was there was a very nice technical expertise experience. The film looks good and sounds good, and it was wonderfully done there, and I because now with CGI. There's always this. You said the practical realities of making the film. Can we achieve? That used to be a real question: practical effect or CGI effect. Let's get practical. My point being is when you look at a script and you have some sort of, let's say, big set piece in there, something that's going to cost you some dough, right? Some real money.
Oh yeah.
Right? How do you tackle that? How do you tackle that in terms of making that an important scene? Will you back off and let it be shot differently because it'll cost less, or how do you look at those big set pieces?
Well, I guess when I wrote the script for Fang, what I had in mind is that the big set pieces would mostly be dialogue between the characters. And what I kind of realized after a certain point of working on the movie, it gives you, when you're doing it for a long time, your opinion of it changes from when you first write the script and you're on set. But what I realized is that the horror in Fang is as much about kind of the relationships between the characters. It's a very dark mother and son relationship. Yeah. And kind of the main characters, Billy and his mother Gina, and kind of the characters around them. That's as much where the horror comes from as the actual transformation into a rat, which didn't require very much in terms of practical effects. Although Caitlin Young, our special effects makeup artist, she did a really fantastic,
exceptional
job with the rat fur prosthetics. So I guess I guess my answer would be that you got to have something to fall back on, even if you have enough money to have a lot of special effects in the movie. Is like you want it to be more than that, and have something to balance that out, and that's what makes it a compelling experience more than just spending like $1 million on a particular scene.
I agree completely. I agree
Oh,
completely
thank you.
because I mean, I think we both come from a very indie, I don't want to say indie background. I want to say almost indie inspiration. Like the idea
Absolutely.
that the best movies we've probably ever seen were not the movies that were the biggest budget movies. The best movies we've ever seen are things that made us feel for a character and the scenario
definitely.
and what's at stake. I really loved the movie. I want to tell you that.
Thank you.
Yeah, and although I would not say I have a horror script that I'm working on currently developing, but I wouldn't say that I am an expert on horror. Are you an expert on horror? Are you? I mean, obviously,
so.
Yeah. Through your film, you can see the expertise. But do you go all the way back to when you're 10 years old? Were you compelled to watch horror films? Were you interested in who made them? Stuff like that. How did that unfold? How did you get kind of interested?
Oh, that is a great question. I will say when I was 10 years old, I was already interested in horror, definitely, although by that point I had not seen very much. My parents were a little more strict in terms of what I was allowed to watch, but if anything, that made it more fascinating for me to think about, these are these forbidden movies.
The forbidden fruit.
Oh, yeah.
Very good, very good.
And my dad had this DVD of The Shining at home, and I remember looking at the cover with Jack Nicholson's psychotic face, and I was thinking, what's that about? And then, of course, I actually watched it when I was a teenager, and I watched a bunch more horror movies when I was a teenager, and that was what it really began for me. And each year I discover new movies that really capture my imagination and make a strong impression on me.
Yeah.
So I think, all this talk about we're running out of, new movies. Nobody makes them like they used to. I think people, there's still a lot to be inspired by, and we're going to be seeing a lot of new classics get made in our lifetimes.
We've only ran out of attention span. We haven't ran out of new ideas. The truth is that the audience has changed and the media has changed, and so the way that they discuss things has changed, and the way things are distributed have changed. So now people don't really know how to, people are picking their niche in a different way than they ever did. And so the viewership doesn't oh, that's a hit, or did you make it? Are you wealthy now because you made your film? The way people think of the business is going to change, because if you do it, well, the nature of this podcast, Stop Making Movies, it's called Stop Making Movies. And the reason I called Stop Making Movies is not because I want people to stop making movies. I'm just telling them there's an easier way to make a buck.
Absolutely.
If you don't really love it, then just stop it. Just stop right
Definitely.
now. Right? Because if you're not devoted, then you're never going to make anything that's interesting anyway, right?
Oh, absolutely. I would even take that a step further and say, if you're not really devoted, not only are you not going to make anything that's not really interesting, you're probably not going to make very much, period.
Yes.
I think it takes a certain level of devotion to even finish a movie or finish writing a script.
Yes.
Or even get anywhere. You have to be really dedicated to it. So I think if it's something that people think, oh, this is it's going to be easy, I just need to make a movie, and then I'll be a star. It's a lifelong thing.
Journey.
You have to be really passionate about it, and that passion has to come through in your work too. Because I've met some people who are getting into it for the wrong reasons. They just I get that kind of vibe from certain people, and I'm not going to name anyone in particular, but some people like it's kind of like they want attention from their movies, and it's more about like attention than it is like the actual work itself, which is like I want to get attention too. Everybody wants to get attention, but I think you have to like be really passionate about the movie itself and kind of put the movie outside yourself to some degree, if that makes any sense.
Yes, it very much does. And those people are called future executives.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so we'll be right back after this message from Phantom Mentor Digital about their new comedy, Scramble.
Welcome to the Corn Dunes Golf Course.
I would like to welcome you all to the Corn Dunes Qualifier. The winner of today's tournament will get an automatic bid in the big banana.
There's the anglers.
I'm from the great state of Oklahoma, oil man by trade, lover by persistence, and golfer by anointment.
The metal irons. Real golf wives.
What are you doing?
The wind's picking up.
Are you going to go down a club?
I don't know, but this breeze feels amazing on my Botox.
Denzel Washington.
We've all seen you putt. I don't need that black magic voodoo nonsense that's in your putter to affect my putters.
Jesus Chips.
There's two things I love. It's golf and the Lord. So let's get to blessing.
Johnny Longo and the Pindicate.
The prize money, 10 times that of any other Scramble tournament. I mean, it's like the live tour of Scramble tournaments.
Scramble, the first golf comedy TV series ever.
Now available on Amazon Prime Video.
Oh, yeah.
They're holding the camera today, but tomorrow they're going to be selling movies or doing nothing in the game because they want the attention more than they want to see the work. You know, for me, it was always been about having an issue with having sort of a voice on my shoulder or I don't know if it's the devil, I don't know if it's an angel, but it's a voice on my shoulder that's saying, oh, today you got to do this. Oh, have you thought about this idea? Oh, have you worked on that? You know, like my brain. There's always a voice going like, oh, that's a good idea. Or like, yeah, let's work that one out. Or let's hammer out that idea. So it's not a choice for me. It's actually like a part of my person, you know, like that voice is in my head. Like other people have other voices, you know, they're like, I need to go get a sandwich, or I want to jog 10 miles, or, you know, I want to do this or that. I want to make a ton of money, whatever their voice is, they've got one. Right. And I write stories about them. But my voice is, how am I going to create that? How am I going to create this story? You know, this story about this thing.
My brain is always kind of pulling me in about 1,000 different directions. Joe, and my voice tells me, not that I'm schizophrenic, but the kind of voice that you have, it does come up with a lot of different ideas of what I should be doing, Jill.
Yeah, and that's something you have to wrestle with in terms of, you know, because I've always said that art is walking a plank towards an unhealthy mental state.
Absolutely.
And art is how close can you get to the edge of the plank before you go off the plank, right? And then you're in the water.
There's not even always a line. I think on some level, it is kind of insane, you know, to make a movie, but, you know, he could be insane in a good way. And if nobody took these kinds of crazy risks, then, you know, we wouldn't be seeing all of this, you know, beautiful work that we've seen for the past 100 years or so.
Right. See, the true appreciation that the dilemma is, it's not a terrible dilemma. It's just the way that the world works in a certain regard, because the consumers of content have become sort of junkies for they don't approve. When The Godfather came out, people still walked into a cinema and it was an experience. And they paid their money at the door and they sat there and they watched the film, and that entire film, they walked out of there with it, you know. Taxi Driver, you go down the list. In terms of Fang, I mean, you're talking about the Bates Motel, man. I mean, you're talking about Psycho. Like these films engaged people, and then they went back and they talked about it, and it kind of permeated throughout society. Now we're in a place where mass consumption and fast consumption and binge watching are a reality. So you really have to find your place, Well,
that's one of the hardest parts, is just kind of reaching that audience and getting it to stick with people. Because I know that a lot of people who've watched Fang, told me about it afterwards and talked to me about it. And they said that it made a really strong impression on them. And it's something that people remembered for a while. But I think it's harder than it sounds to break through to a wide audience, especially with so many other like people and movies and news events competing for attention. I think that's one of the hardest things, but it's definitely possible. And you look at a movie like Terrifier, Art the Clown, that was an indie movie too, that was funded through Indiegogo made by people who just wanted to make a movie and really wanted to get their ideas out there on film, and that became hugely popular. So I think anything is possible. Really, you just have to be like very sharp about what is the best step to take next.
Yes, and just keep taking steps, because you never know where that window is going to open. I think every filmmaker, again, I call it stop making movies, but I don't want anybody to stop, really. I want everybody who loves this work to just to be vigilant and never say die about it.
If you listen to somebody who tells you to stop making movies, you were never really gonna finish it anyway.
Right. And that's it. And I mean, that's what conceptualized these discussions that me and you were having, is the idea that, like, I want to talk to people who love it, and they have such a passion for it that it's never dying. They would never stop. I've made the joke that on my tombstone, I just wanted to say, yeah, he made a couple good movies. That's it. That's all I needed to say.
That'd be pretty sweet.
Yeah, that'd be pretty sweet, man. The other day I listened to a podcast with Jason Blum, Blumhouse, Paranormal Activities, like what got him his break, and I mean,
that was a tiny budget on that.
15,000.
But they really made it work. They cut through the noise, and they made a movie that impacted a huge audience.
Yeah, and I mean, I think that, movies like Fang, because he explained in the conversation I heard, he explained how many years it took for that to get to the major distribution. They wanted no part of it. The Paramount wanted no part of it, and he just kept, plugging away. He actually pulled a trick on the people. He found a couple distributors from Disney that were interested in it, and he said, okay, because they want him to remake it at a bigger budget. So take the same concept, remake it, bigger budget, right? And he's like, I already think we got gold here. So what I said to them is, I said, well, I want you guys to come watch it in front of a test audience with me, so that we can decide which parts of it we would use in a new version and which parts we would cut out in a new version. He's like, but I never wanted them to make a new version. So what I wanted them to do is sit with an audience of people that aren't film people and aren't friends of the film, and watch their reaction. And he said,
oh, that was a great idea.
Great idea. And he said, when these executives saw the people just unload and like applause at the end of it, they were like, okay, never mind. And they immediately shifted to how do we get it distributed, So I thought that was,
I don't even get, like, why would you want to spend like a couple million more dollars to remake it? I guess they didn't realize that, it was already really winning over the audience.
Right. Because I don't think that executives think that way. I think they want to have a surefire way to make sure that it's a hit. So they got an escape hatch and they've got a way to the top and there's nothing in between. But for the filmmaker, it's like, we already made a great piece of art. Just
definitely
put some energy behind it, you know? So
no, it's like if you're too risk averse in general, then you probably don't belong in the film industry, because every movie is some kind of a gamble. And I felt that too when I was working on Fang. You know, there were nights when I would have trouble wondering, I would have trouble falling asleep wondering, you know, is this movie ever going to get finished?
Yes.
That was my biggest concern, because post-production took like 2.5 years on things. And then after, will this movie ever get finished? Then I was wondering late at night, will this movie ever get distributed? And now I can say that it has been finished and it's been distributed. So I feel a lot more confident now than I did a couple of years ago.
Yeah. Doesn't that feel good?
Hell yeah.
Yeah. There's a combination of relief and excitement and, you know, and then there's then there's a healing process. And then there's like, all right, let's do it again. Let's get some clowns out here. Bring in some clowns.
Multiple clowns.
Yeah. So again, we'll go back to your teenage years and we talk about how you first watched films that started to inspire you. When did the writing, directing, the idea that you were going to make stuff start to kick in?
It was around that time too, because I'll be completely honest and say that I wasn't really the happiest or most popular teenager, which I don't think too many teenagers are very happy or popular. So while the normal kids at school were like, oh, you know, I want to go to prom and like win this, you know, trophy and whatnot, I was kind of imagining what my life would be like, you know, if I got really successful as a director. And I had a pretty grandiose vision of what being a successful director was like.
You can't get anywhere without delusion. You can't get anywhere.
Everybody has to be a little bit delusional.
You gotta be deluded. And just to get past the first stage, you know?
Oh, yeah.
So, anyway.
It just sort of grew over time. I think I've kept getting better every year that I've been working at it. And I think now I could make an even better movie than Fang, although I'm still very happy with Fang. But it's just kind of been a very gradual, like, improvement, which, like, if I look at something that I was doing like 10 years ago, I would be like, Jesus Christ, no, I can do a lot better than that now.
Yeah, and that's the game. That's the process. That's the process.
Yeah.
You know, it's like
amen to that.
When I wrote my first scripts, you know, and they were trash, but I was so proud of getting them completed.
No, I mean, that's still better than a lot of people do. You know, a lot of people never actually finish their big writing projects. So I think just getting something finished, you know, is a major accomplishment.
And now when I talk to people and I know that I can crank out a 100-page script. It might be a piece of crap today, but I can crank it out because I have the experience of putting that many words to paper. You know what I mean? So
absolutely.
So now when I sit down to write, it's like an orchestra's in front of me, as opposed to that early thing when it was a pencil and a piece of paper. You know what I mean? Like, it was like,
yeah.
You know, it's felt so daunting, you know? But you finish one movie, you finish Fang, and you go, okay, so I can see the finish line now. Every time I step up to do the thing, I can see, yes, is there going to be hardships? Yes, I'm going to have to go through a bunch of shit, but but in the end, I can get this done, and that's
absolutely.
that's a unique experience that needs to be shared with other filmmakers as we're doing today. I mean,
definitely.
Other filmmakers need to know when they're 15 years old, and it seems like a daunting task that, that's actually the best thing about life is that if you keep walking the staircase, you'll eventually get to the top, and might not be the top that everybody thinks is like the major success of life or whatever, but a finished film is the top of something. It's the top of
that's the top of one of the staircases.
Yeah. And you did it with Fang because it's an excellent film. It has.
Thank you so much.
It's very inspired. It has a very, very distinct kind of mood. It has a very, very distinct kind of sensitivity to how people feel. It has a voice that is unique, and so for a whole, again, I'm not in the genre, although because I wrote something. I think I find myself more in the M. Night Shyamalan kind of area in terms of whether he's made great films and he's made okay films, and we've seen it up and down roller coaster with the quality of his work, right? All still beautiful pieces of work, but in terms of being as edgy as they were in the beginning, but I don't write the same depth of horror I think that you're going to produce, so
I do have a pretty dark imagination, and I like to think that I'm a pretty calm person generally. I don't get too like in my everyday life, but my mind can definitely go to some places. So thank you so much for the kind words, and I really appreciate your support of Fang and for getting to be here and talk with you is a really wonderful experience.
Yeah, it's for me as well because I'm talking, which I don't get often a chance to do. I'm getting a chance to talk to another director, another writer, another conceptualizer, another dreamer, another hard worker, another finisher, another person who wrestles with all the struggles that a filmmaker goes through. And so I don't get to have those conversations. Usually I'm the guy, right? So I'm the guy they come to and say, how are we going to make this scene? How are we going to do this costume? How are we going to make this, what lenses are we using? Why do you want this camera moving? You know what I mean? Like all those things. So I don't get to talk to another director and say, why did you make that move? Why did you decide on that costume? Why did you, So it is a really cathartic for me. I can imagine too that, for somebody that has a dark imagination, that that making these films kind of exercises those demons for you in a way.
Oh, definitely. No, I mean, and I think the greatest source of, inspiration for writing or directing any kind of movie is you got to draw from what you've seen in your life and the people around you. And I always try to make sure my characters feel like real people, maybe not the kind of people that you would want to have in your own family, but I do want them to feel real. And I think it's important to have like empathy even for evil characters or characters.
Empathy's the key.
Do terrible things.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Because it's like you got to see where they're coming from without necessarily glamorizing them or glorifying them, but you have to kind of understand, why are they like this?
Yeah, and I mean, societally, we have an idea of normalcy or the norm, and it doesn't account for so many of our people that maybe are walking the world a little bit differently. They're walking a different road, And I mean, and to think that, that they don't need stories that make them feel human, that make them feel like they have a character out there in the world that kind of makes them understand themselves. And I think that's the thing that people don't understand about horror films or about, films that really tackle character-driven stuff, because that stuff is really therapeutic for the viewer.
Oh, absolutely. That's what I always hope for, is that, it's kind of a weird thing, because it's like I don't really want the characters in Fang to be too relatable for people, because then that means that they've had some pretty bad experiences in life. But I do think that, it's really important to be able to connect to the characters and maybe even see aspects of yourself in the characters, which I think any writer is going to put aspects of themselves into their characters, even if maybe that's not what they're intending. But I think
it's always a place to go.
You always put a little bit of yourself into them.
Yeah. So I think many of my characters have obviously parts of me in them. I think that sometimes through the journey, they become their own entity, meaning they might have been inspired by myself or a portion of myself, but then they become their own entity and they start talking back to me in a way that I'm like, I'm not even sure I know this person, right? Like, I don't think I could never even go to that point. That little shred of me is now gone, and this guy is now this person is now taken over the body of my character. It's interesting. That's one of the interesting things about writing characters, writing stories, is that, sometimes the characters kind of take you on a journey that you weren't expecting. I love looking back at some of the stuff I wrote and like thought it was so dumb, but the truth is it was very much a premonition. I was talking about my future self. I was predicting parts of my future self in scripts before it happened, because
that's really interesting. I did have a couple of, life experiences after making Fang that did kind of resemble what I wrote for some of the characters in it. So that's like, damn, I never thought of it that way, that it's like, you're predicting your future self, or what yourself could have been like, if you went down a different path.
Yeah, it's like every day I'll jot down little notes about something that I'm working on, right? And then I'll read those notes back, sometimes going back a long time, right? And I'm like, oh my God, that's what I was conceptualizing this, but I had no idea how it was gonna actually come to fruition. And I forgot that I had conceptualized it that way. And here it is, I'm working on it now. And it's becoming real. And it was really just that little inkling of myself years before, so, okay. So you break out of the inspiration period into the actual writing the script for Fang, right? So Fang is your first feature, correct?
That's right.
Okay. And so, how did Fang, from all the stuff you'd conceptualized, how did it rise to the top as being your first major film undertaking? Like, this is going to be my first feature-length piece,
Well, that is a great question. Why did I choose this particular idea to have be my first movie? I guess what I was thinking back then was, and it's kind of funny because originally when I got into filmmaking, I never really wanted to do anything that was like autobiographical for me. But with Fang, I was going through some stuff in the years before the movie was made. I was going through some stuff with my dad when he had Parkinson's, and that and kind of the feeling of that period of my life is what really inspired Fang. And I always like to tell the story about how at my dad's house we had a brown recluse spider infestation. And so I started thinking, well, you can't get bit by a spider and start turning into a spider because that would be too much like Spider-Man. So I came up with the turning into a rat as an alternative. But I guess I don't really know why I latched onto that particular idea. Maybe it was something like subconsciously. It was something that resonated with me a lot when I thought of it, because there's some ideas that I just don't go anywhere with. I kind of throw out certain ideas where I get excited about it for maybe an hour or so, but Fang was something that really stuck with me.
Well, now do you feel that because your characters and what he's going through, your main character, do you feel like you could have went multiple? I mean, it could have been a spider, right? Because I mean, you were drawing on a real spider infestation in your house. You got the old movie Arachnophobia. You got a lot of movies where spiders come into play.
Oh, definitely.
And obviously Spider-Man being the most famous of those. So what led to the rat choice?
Oh, that is a great question, Joe. I guess I was thinking rats are something that a lot of people have in their homes, and certainly here in Chicago, you see plenty of rats around the city. But one thing I was thinking of on a deeper level, and this is only something I thought about later, so it wasn't like a conscious decision for me, is that like a rat is kind of like a great metaphor, for the movie in a way, because rats are kind of treated as outcasts or as dangerous pests. People are afraid of them and they want to kill rats or get them out of their houses. But a rat is really just being itself, is not really trying to harm people.
No, it literally.
So I guess that's kind of what I was thinking in retrospect.
That's great. I mean, it literally just It just wants to eat your garbage to survive and find someplace warm. That's all. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Today I was out in the snow and I just saw this squirrel jumping through these like 10 inches of snow trying to get someplace. And I literally thought, I was like, this guy is really just trying to get someplace, right?
Definitely.
He usually he's running fast across the grass, but now he's just trying to find some sort of nesty environment where he can, get some food and I mean, a squirrel is really just a cuter rat.
Oh, definitely. They're very closely related.
Very close.
And pigeons are like rats with wings.
Yeah. Pigeons are rats with wings. It's like, that's what I'm saying. Like, if your character could have turned into a pigeon, your character could have turned into a squirrel.
Interesting, actually.
Yeah.
I would make a pigeon kind of movie.
Fang 2. It's the pigeon story. I think we got something here.
Have a Mr. Pigeon. I want to have like a Mr. Pigeon character. Now that you mention it, I think I want to have somebody dressed up as like a giant humanoid pigeon. I think that would be really fabulous.
Yeah, that'd be totally frightening and completely a great set piece right there. Yeah, that would
yeah,
because I mean it's kind of like a movie like Harvey, or like when somebody has an imaginary friend. If every once in a while, just in a crowd, you just saw the pigeon guy just standing there, just like in a wide shot. You know what I mean? Just like,
it's like he's pecking at something too. I think that would be more ominous for him to be doing like the pecking motion like that, and
people are just passing by normal life. Guys getting in a Lamborghini, guys selling hot dogs on the street. Here's just this giant man, and nobody's paying attention to him. That'd be totally ominous, like frightening.
That would be pretty wild.
Yeah, man. Fang 2. It's gotta happen. Beak.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah, Fang 2. Invasion of the beaks.
There you go. Okay, well, so now you get to the point where you're about to go into production for Fang. So let's talk a little bit about how you were able to finance it. How were you able to get enough money together to make it happen?
Well, that's always the hard part.
Yes, indeed.
For any movie is being able to get the money. For part of the expenses, it was paid by Indiegogo. I did the campaign to help raise money for the distribution expenses. And I also had some money in my family too. I got an early inheritance from my dad, which helped out, although it was a traumatic but relatively easy way to get some money to make the movie.
Bittersweet is all hell.
Yeah.
But also,
and in a way, with the movie, I kind of wanted Fang, even though the character in Fang was Parkinson's, Gina, played by Lynn Lowry, she does not come off in a very positive light, but I did want Billy and Gina to have some kind of tender family moments together, because really when you live with somebody who has a disease like that, it's, it changes who they are. They weren't always like that.
Yeah.
And so I think that's kind of the real horror of Fang, is that either you have a disease like Parkinson's or you're transforming into a rat, but you have like some kind of condition that's happening to you that you don't really have any control over, and it changes who you are.
Man, love that. I mean,
thank you.
Love it in a bittersweet way, because it's, you can see the vein running through that movie that's associated with that explanation,
thank you.
Yeah, that's what it means to have vision. That's beautiful. That's the idea and that's the great thing about filmmaking, is that when that finished product actually delivered your message, which is not here comes the message. It's here's a movie that makes you feel all of this complex things that I feel, or that other people feel, and I'm going to deliver it to you in a story that you can enjoy, and you can find your own personal place in it. You can find your own squirrel's nest inside of this story, right? Because I think the cool thing about horror too is that most people who might have a mild condition, they get to see somebody who has an extreme condition.
Definitely. That is weirdly very cathartic to see somebody who's kind of like you, only much more extreme.
Yes. Right. It makes you feel like you're back towards a place where you have options to solve or alter your path in a way that's more positive. If you're going really negative, it's a way to basically prevent somebody from committing suicide, or prevent somebody from feeling hopeless, because they say, oh, well, it could be a lot worse here. Right. And it makes you, it's very cathartic. I agree. Okay.
Making the movie has kind of put me on a much more positive path than I would be on if I had never made Fang, because I've met, so many wonderful people in my filmmaking journey, including you, and also everybody who worked on Fang. And I met my girlfriend, because she was really interested when I wrote in my online dating profile, that I was an indie filmmaker. So it's really led me down a much more positive path than if I had just decided, no, I'm not going to risk doing this. Right. And it's really helped me connect with like my people, and my team and everything. So, and that was like one scene that I had in Fang, was because Billy, the main character, is also an artist. He draws a lot of cartoons in his bedroom.
Right.
So at one point in Fang, is asked by Myra, his mother's caregiver, she said something like, I really like your drawings. I was wondering if you wanted to get them published. And then Billy says, no, I'm not going to do that. And right after he refuses to like try to get his work published or try to get an audience for the artwork that he's doing. Like literally a couple of minutes after that is when he starts transforming into a rat. That's like right at the beginning of like a major downward spiral.
That's interesting because he's basically trapped himself.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, because he didn't take the chance of going forward and kind of finding a new identity, so to speak.
Oh, definitely.
Yeah. I mean, don't you feel that maybe that completing Fang had, it's your kind of completion of your own personal identity in a certain regard, like meaning
I hope so.
You found an identity that is now present. It's now here.
Oh, definitely.
You are.
It's a way to redefine who I am compared to who I was.
You're a film director.
Before. Absolutely.
You're a movie maker. You've made movies.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, you're a writer, film director, and you could put that on your card and mean it.
Oh yeah, no, I could just, when people ask me, what do I do? I could just tell them, yeah, I made this movie. It's called Fang. You can watch it on Amazon Prime or Plex or Roku, and it's about a guy who thinks he's turning into a rat. I kind of have like my 1 or 2 sentence pitch that I've probably given to about 1,000 people.
Let's hear it. Let's hear it. Let's hear it. For those who are going to have to pitch to an executive, what's the pitch on Fang?
Oh, this is the movie Fang. It's psychological horror. It's about a guy who thinks he's turning into a rat. It stars Lynn Lowry in her favorite performance. And she's worked with David Cronenberg, George Romero, Paul Schrader, and her performance in Fang is her favorite that she's given. It's only 98 minutes long, so if you don't like it, it doesn't take up too much of your time.
So give it a look.
Oh, yeah.
That's exciting.
It's fantastic.
Okay, so now to filmmakers out there in the world that are going to make their first film, what would you tell them about how to get it distributed? I think that's one of the things. One of the 2 hardest things is understanding how to get it financed, and then understanding how to get it seen. You would think that making the movie was hard enough, but no. That's
kind of the easier part. Being on set is a lot of fun. You feel the adrenaline rush that powers you through being there for 12 hours straight. And for distribution, I would say definitely consider Film Hub as a way, because they kind of pitch your movie to different platforms, and then they only take 20% of the profits. And more importantly than that is like whether you use Film Hub or indie rights or a more traditional distributor, you have to make sure to have a really solid marketing campaign for your movie so people know that it's out there and they know about it to watch it after it comes out. And another thing I would say about distribution is that you got to be very, very careful, because a lot of distributors are hungry to take advantage of indie filmmakers who don't really know very much about how this all works. Like, I didn't know very much. So you just gotta do your homework, make sure you read any contract thoroughly, and hope for the best.
There you go. I mean, I couldn't explain it any better myself, including the indie rights reference, the Film Hub reference, because there are a lot of distributors out there that are trying to expand a library that offers the filmmaker nothing.
Absolutely.
So they just want to have as many products out there as possible. And whether that product's bringing in nickels or dollars, they just want to create it through mass amounts of content while not giving the filmmaker anything. So that's something I would just say you are completely right about.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah. Very good. Very good. So, so tell us about what comes next for you.
Well, hopefully I'm going to be back on set sometime in the next few months, definitely before the end of the year, I'll be back on set, which has really been a while for me because Fang was filmed in January and February 2020, right before the pandemic. So I'm really excited to actually be getting to direct another feature film, work with like another big production is just a really amazing, powerful feeling. And I'll always be grateful that I've gotten to have this experience. And then hopefully once I'm able to get a little more attention for my work and easier access to resources, I'm like, I want to be directing a new movie every year. Hopefully I want to be like that, in that kind of like Hitchcock mode where he was like making a new movie every year for most of his life. I want to be doing that.
I do too.
That's the dream.
That's the dream. That's always the hope, is that I love to write in the winter and direct in the summer.
That's the way to do it.
Every year, man. So hopefully we'll both get there. It was an absolute pleasure talking to you.
It was really wonderful talking to you too, Josh. And thank you so much for asking me all of these deep and philosophical questions about the filmmaking process. I really appreciate it. And I hope that our discussion tonight has been very informative and hopefully very entertaining too for anyone who's been listening.
Well, I want them to listen and then not stop making movies.
Absolutely. If anybody tells you to stop, and you listen to them, you weren't really cut out to be a filmmaker. You just have to ignore like the hundreds of people who tell you to stop.
Yes. I hope you never stop.
I'll never stop, and I hope you never stop either, man.
All right, man. It was so great talking to you.
It was so great talking to you too, and I hope you have a wonderful night and good luck with writing for the rest of the winter.
And what's the name of the next film again? What it's this?
Oh, right.
What is the next one?
Movie is the Slaughter Brothers Dime Circus, starring Lynn Griffin from the 1974 Black Christmas.
Oh,
We're raising money on Indiegogo right now.
Okay.
We'll have the link in the description box of this podcast for anyone who wants to check it out or contribute. And we'll also have the streaming links for my movie, Fang 2022, below as well.
Fantastic. Okay. You have a good rest of your evening. It was great talking to you.
Oh, you too, Josh.
All right.
Stay safe and stay warm.
All right. We'll talk again when the next one's done. You're coming back on, okay?
Oh, yeah. I'm excited for it.
All right, buddy. Later.
Oh, sure thing.
Bye.
Okay, so we had a hell of a conversation with Richard Burgin. His film Fang is now available online. Links below. And maybe go over to his Indiegogo page and help support his next film. That clown movie he was talking about with the long title. It's based on a really cool play, though, so hopefully you'll get over there and help him do that. We'd love to see you back for another episode of Stop Making Movies, where we delve into kind of the psyche of filmmakers and what kind of keeps them going.
Okay, you're there.
Stop it!